so welcome to another edition of Lifeline. This is our last in a series of 3 for December, right? We started with goal setting and planning. We talked about the habits of success. And now here's the last one. And that is, why do agents fail? Now, this is going to be short. This is going to be short, right? Because I believe in the end, there are only a handful of reasons. I'm going to start us off. I'm going to tell you right now. Number one is they failed to set a big goal and a big plan. Number two, they failed to time block their mornings around lead generation, right? And number three, and here's the third big one, and that is they do not understand that all business is database based. That's all business, right? That's all of it.
What do you mean by? Elaborate on that one a bit.
Easy. If I want to make X amount of money, I can work that back, and I can do it. It doesn't matter if I'm a restaurant, a toy store, a barber shop, doesn't matter. I can, right? Or whether I'm selling mugs, it doesn't matter. I got into business to get my freedom money. I've worked backwards. I know how much money that has to occur in order for me to do that. For this business to net me that money that over time buys me my freedom, there's a set number of people called my database, right? That if I have a relationship with them and they regularly choose to use me, in our industry, that's going to be every 8 to 10 years, right? But they can refer someone every year to me, right? So when I do that math, I come back and I go, wow. So to hit my goals, I need a database of 2,000 people. I need a database of 4,000. Jay and I put an argument out there for the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and that database number is what, Jay?
Oh gosh, you're going to put me on quiz with the coffee. It was like between, depending on your price point, between like 4,000 and 6,000.
That's right.
With a very conservative conversion rate.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the number was between 4 to 6, Monica, based upon your sales price and your conversion numbers. But the point that's it. And again, every real estate agent, their only goal when they get up in the morning should be to lead generate, to fill the data, to fill the database. The fact that they actually sell houses this year is almost a distraction. And I'm being funny, but it's a distraction, because if you're not careful, you'll be focused on making the sale or taking the listing, Jason, instead of you actually building the database.
Yeah. And
in other words, on the way to getting a millionaire database, I happen to sell some houses, versus I'm selling some houses and, oh yeah, I guess I need to put that in a database, right? Because here's what we know. The research is really clear, right, Jay? And that is, when you look at top agents, they have about 3 to 4 main lead gen activities, and they have 3 to 4 minors, right? And then we look at those top 3 to 4, always database is number one. And it's going to ultimately account for at least 50% of their business, right?
Those top 4 usually count up to between 85 to 90% of their business. So it's not a million things they do. They have one primary thing and a few secondary in that group that drives 80 to 90% of their results.
So notice again, Monica, what I'm doing, and that is I'm manipulating the conversation to get us to one thing. Because I believe that the challenge that people have, if we were having a conversation around why do people succeed or fail, I'm going to tell you that the number one reason that they fail is because they lead a complex life. They believe that success is complicated, and that's true. And then they literally endorse the idea, Jason, of complexity. Instead of whittling it back down to a simple thing that if they do that, all the dominoes fall after that. And
you made a really good point in a previous video about boredom. I mean, the fact, I heard a bold coach say the other day, someone said, I'm tired of giving up, or I'm tired of starting over. And the bold coach said, well, then stop giving up. If you don't give up anymore, you're never going to have to start over. And I was taken by that, because it kind of sounded like what you say, which is success is on the other side of boredom. Most people aren't willing to get that bored. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, the database is the whole thing. I mean, Keller Williams is a database. I mean, honestly.
It's the database, but it's also following up because here's the thing, because I see agents go out all the time and they come back and they say, I got 50,000 people in the database. And you say, well, how many units you do? And they say 70. And you're like, there's something wrong, right? Because a database doesn't mean that you had a phone book. That's what they gave me 21 years ago. They said, by the time you get through the D's, you're going to have a deal. That's not a database. That's just a collection of names. A database are the people that you follow up with frequency and intensity. You add value in there. You're giving to get back, right, Gary?
Yeah. And here's the other thing, right, Monica? And that is what type of transaction or what type of lead pays the highest commission? Referrals.
Yeah.
It's referral.
Right. Well, you get the most money from that. Yeah.
Yeah, because they feel too uncomfortable asking you to take a discount, right? Who's the most loyal lead you'll ever have?
Referral past client.
Referral past client. Yeah, the database driven. So the database driven is almost like your a suit of armor, Jason, because it's going to pay you the most amount of money per deal, commission wise. And number two, they're going to be the most loyal to you.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody has one of two problems. Either number one, you don't have enough people in the data bank, or number two, you're not following up with those people in a way that gets them to like you more, because people do business with people they like. And you can diagnose it right now. Take the total number, divide it by the total number of units that you sold, and then ask the question, am I getting a high enough percentage out of that group?
And it goes back, Gary, it goes back to really an agent understanding that the database is your only asset. It's nothing else. It's not a Louis Vuitton bag. It's not your car, your database. And you need to look at it every day. You need to protect it. You need to nurture it. You need to grow it. You need to feed it. You need to take care of it. It is your only asset. You have nothing but your database.
That's it. That's the one thing. That's it. When you think about why agents fail, and I'm not talking about fail tomorrow morning. I'm saying that they fail to understand what the basis of all great business, and the basis, and you said it, the basis of all great businesses is the database, right? Yep. It drives me crazy, right? If I was going to go start a restaurant and I needed to make X amount of money from the restaurant, I would just work backwards from my gross income to my expenses to my net, and then do the math and say, how many people do I need to have in my database that will come to my restaurant 4 times a year? And that's going to be a number. And then right. And then when people come into my restaurant, instead of just saying, here, thanks for coming, and not knowing who they are, I'm gonna give them a reason to give me their name, email address, or snail mail address, or whatever, so that I'll know my restaurant, no matter whether COVID shuts me down physically or not, I've got 4,000 people. I've got 2,000, where that number is, that I'm in relationship with. And the second that COVID happened, I got on the phone and I started calling my customers, my database, saying, hey, I know you love to eat the shrimp, scampi on Thursdays. So I want to let you know that this Thursday, I'm bringing it to your house. And by the way, it's going to be half off, or it's going to be whatever, right? But they didn't know who they were.
Yep. We saw that this year.
They don't know who bought their toys, Jason.
I know. It's crazy. And Jay, you just made a great point. Expand on that, because you're right. This year exposed a lot of things.
Yeah, we saw it. Like, you can think back. What are the businesses that proactively reached out to you and they had to shift their business model? They said, we're doing takeout, we're doing deliveries. And you knew usually by April or May of last year, which of the businesses you frequented were database businesses and which weren't.
Well, think about our friends at Google told us at MegaCamp earlier that 64% of everyone in your data bank was willing to try a new vendor this year if they could do business in a digital way or in a less contact way. And you look up and you say, well, the second part of that number was that 80% said that made no representation on whether they would come back to that existing service provider, meaning they were willing to try new things and they weren't willing to close the door on old relationships. It is to say, though, that if you had no idea who you were in a business relationship with, you have no chance in the game, especially moving forward as technology becomes more prevalent within the industry. It's not a choice anymore. It's a mandate.
Yeah. Well, the other benefit of this, Monica, is by knowing who my customers are, knowing who my database is, and waking up every day to provide value to those people, that's where you find the passion of the industry. It's not in doing a deal. It's in helping people.
So using your word time block, you should have in your schedule to be a successful agent, time blocking, working on your database, whether it's
that's the lead gen. That's the lead gen. In other words, the whole goal of lead gen is if I don't have a database, bye, Jason. Love you. You got to go. You got to go. Bye.
Okay, bye.
He's got a time block to honor.
He's got a time block.
Got a time block.
But that's the problem, right? So when I time block lead gen, the goal, I don't have anybody in my database. So I'm going to have to prospect and market my way to my database. But the goal is not to make the sale. The goal is to be adding consistently people into the database that I can then build a service and value delivering relationship around. And by the way, on the way to building the database, I sold 50 units this year. I sold 100 this year. I did whatever I did, right?
It's hard to remember this far back, but you remember when we first interviewed Chris Juarez, he got into a new town, new business. He intentionally, because he knew this model, he started with open houses because he knew that every open house, he might get as many as 30 or 40 names to add to his database. He started with a database building thing so that he could grow his business. And what he just did along the way to building a millionaires database. And we see this again and again. That was just the first one that jumped to mind.
Yeah, it's kind of like running a general brokerage, which is the business, that I've been in my career. And that is the real estate agent I'm in business with is the parallel database. So the goal of recruiting wasn't to always have to recruit. The goal was to recruit and build a database, if you will, of X number of agents who I can wake up every day now and devote my life to helping them maximize their potential.
You said in a mastermind one time, Gary, that you should be purposeful about putting 3 names a day in their name, address, phone number, and email.
Yeah.
You're purposeful that you have a goal each day to grow your database.
That's it,
Yep.
by the way. So you can clock it, Monica. If in fact you said the goal was 3 a day, then that would be, let's just call it 15 a week. So that would be 60 a month. So at the end of 1 year, that'd be
720.
Yeah. So at the end of 2 years, it would be
1440.
Yeah. At the end of 4 years,
2880.
you're
Oh, that's 3 years. Sorry. So another 14. So 5,200, something like that.
a millionaire. 4 years.
That's a 4-year plan.
4 years to a millionaire. I mean, I'm just saying that was your goal to make 50 sales, or was your goal to, and again, using just these numbers, my goal was to net $1 million someday. Well, guess what? 4 years, 5 years. Should not. We now know it does not take longer than that. We have absolute proof it is happening, right? Mm-hmm. Now, by the way, those who jump the shark and do it a lot sooner end up sometimes because they hit a vein. So they hit a relocation vein, or they hit an REO vein, or they hit a builder vein. In other words, they get business that in one relationship that generates a tremendous amount of business around that, right?
Yeah.
And that's
I remember you used to tell the story always of getting that relocation business for KW early on, because you understood that some people in your database were worth more than others, not all names. And you got that relocation person. I think you sent them a plant. It was a really weird plant, and said, if you want to learn how to keep this alive, I'll come by and give you instructions. And that was your trick. They would never give you any time until you just kind of forced it by being memorable. Then you won the relocation business that helped launch this company. So not everybody matters equally. And if we understand our database, we know that some people are always going to refer business to us if we just remember to talk to them and reach out to them.
Yeah, my big aha was early on was that my database was my business, and making a sale was just something that happened on the way to building the database. Whether I made a sale, if I met you, my goal was not to sell you something or list something. My goal was to see if I could become your realtor of choice, right? Or your realtor for life, or however you want to say it, and get you into my database. And then we'll determine, do we need to do business now, or do we need to do it in 10 years? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's one other thing that I always think people don't remember, and you've got to think the big picture. At some point, you want an exit strategy. And when you have a very precise, very functioning, very doable business where you say, okay, I've got 5,000 people in my database. We wake up on January 1st, we know we're going to do 100 deals because we have these systems in place. How valuable is that to the next agent you're going to sell it to? Or you partner with it, you make money off of that the rest of your life?
Well, let's just remember this, and that is, if you master the time block for lead gen, and then you master the database that matches the income you need, that over time delivers the freedom money that you need, everything else can be delegated.
Yeah.
Many people give me way too much credit, right? I mean, it's this thing of, because he did that right, maybe he does everything right. Now, the reality is I'm a student of life. I'm a student of my game. So I'm a thoughtful person about a lot of things. So I'm a good person to talk about as you go about picking, what you're going to do and making your decisions. But in the end, I promise you, what I got good at was lead generation, right? And that I did. And I built my entire organization initially around generating the lead.
You still are good at that, Gary. I see you in action all the time.
Yeah.
Kind of like Warren Buffett, his $95 billion, like the vast majority of that came down to just like 5 investment decisions. You've got all these things going, but it was really a handful that gave you disproportionate returns.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one of the tricks to life and sustaining success and in business is knowing what those handful are, Jay. And don't think that everything you do is amazing. Right? We do a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's only going to be a handful that actually determine our success. And the number one mistake that causes agents to fail over time is they don't have a database, and they're not trying to build it. And that ultimately causes them to get out of the business, because most personalities are not a lead generating personality. And what I discovered, and I believe it or not, I'm actually not. I don't like doing that. So the light at the end of the tunnel for me is I saw a period of time where I had to do what I didn't like to do, so I could eventually get to a place where I didn't have to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, your motivation was earning the right to delegate that stuff.
Yes, that's exactly right. The path to freedom is possibly doing some of the things that you don't like to do, but doing them well enough, right, that it gets you to a place where you can afford to delegate the thing or a handful of things that you don't like to do, that you don't even do well because of it.
Well, there you go, back to that word commitment again that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts?
Well, it just occurs to me that when you, as the steward of your database, your biggest bet was actually on building a database for all of us called Command. And that you knew that the future was, if we made this massive investment, this giant leap, that ultimately we'd all could facilitate this very idea of us building database-based businesses. Well,
thank you. That's exactly right. We're getting there. It's tough, but we are getting there. The value is in through consumer experience, right through your agent website, through the KW browser, and through the mobile app, personally branded mobile app, and connecting all of them so that it's a seamless journey between the three, because that's where we're going. Doesn't matter where your client goes, their saved searches, their collections, all that, right? It's almost like their wallet, their key things about what they're doing. Doesn't matter which of those sites they're on, it recognizes who they are. And it already does that on collections and saved searches, right? And we'll just be expanding that. But we're trying to build the tools that allow a real estate agent to go build a database-based business. Because, oh, by the way, it doesn't matter what the aggregators do. It doesn't matter what the iBuyers do. It doesn't matter what anybody, the discounters do. It doesn't matter. Your relationships will come to you.
That's right.
And they will stick with you.
It's the ultimate trump card.
It is. And they can't penetrate it. Right. So the way that you build a business that's total secure, build a database-based business. That's why agents fail, is they fail to do that. And then they burn out.
Well, then I hope everybody listening to this will make sure that when they set their goals for 2021, they are setting their database goals for their future so that they know what to do in 2021 and be on track for that.
It's in the business plan. It's in the business plan. So in all the mastery business plans, Gary, we've got what your current database is and what's the goal and what's the process to get there.
Yeah. So connect the dots on our 3 sessions in December. And that is set the goal for the millionaire database or whatever the number is, but do the math, pick it. And it's 4,000, it's 6,000, it's 7, it's 3, it's whatever it is. And then build a lead generation plan to go fulfill that within 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, whatever path you want to be on. Do that and time block in the morning, a minimum of 4 days a week for a minimum of 2 hours. I prefer to see 5 days a week, 3, but I'm okay with 4 days and 2. It's going to take you longer, but that's okay if you're okay with that, right? And then that's what you do. Everything else is everything else. You're making it way too complicated.
It's great. You summed it all up.
All right. Well, we're in on that note. Have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year's. And we'll see you guys in 2021.